If you want to know about the history of a terrorism museum, it's perhaps best to listen to the man who was the first Homeland Security Secretary for our country after 9/11. Tom Ridge, former governor of Pennsylvania, has distinguished himself in service to our nation and can speak more eloquently than almost anybody else on whether this is a terrorist organization or whether the true terrorists are the people who are terrorizing the people of Camp Ashraf. Governor Tom Ridge.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for that warm and gracious greeting. I thank you very much. I don't know who's responsible for the cameras in the back, but I'm going to make a simple request of one of you or all of you, when you get done filming all this, send a copy over to the White House and over to the Department of State. Might help them better understand what we're all about today. I'd appreciate it very much. It has been my great honor and privilege to be associated with many of my colleagues on the dais and with all those who gather, and frankly have gathered and continue to gather in many places around the world. The Iranian diaspora is rather significant. And around the world we gather from time to time to beg and plead, beseech, encourage, cajole, whatever is necessary to make sure that the human rights, the lives of the men and women, the residents of Camp Ashraf are protected, and that they be ultimately freed to enjoy the freedom and the dignity and the opportunity so consistent with not only their ambitions, but the tradition of a great culture and a great country. It's become very personal to me. I spent a lot of time looking over the shoulders of mothers who've showed me pictures of husbands and sons and daughters that have been killed by the mullahs in Iran, or tragically the two incursions from the Maliki government into Camp Ashraf. It's become really personal to me. I've received many letters of thanks, undeserving letters, of course, but thanks because I've joined so many of my colleagues in publicly supporting the delisting of the POMI and the return to safety and freedom of the residents of Camp Ashraf. It's become very personal to me. I have on my desk in my office the first volume called Fallen for Freedom. 20,000 PMOI martyrs. So in the opportunity that has been afforded me this morning, I thought I would just share with you through a couple of different lenses or prisms my strong support of you and your family, your extended family, the people you care about and love at Camp Ashraf. The first is through the prism of the first is a way that's really not personal at all, if you think about it. It's cold, it's calculating, it's probably as impersonal as you can get. But there's an expression in that part of the world that basically speaks to that, and it says, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Iran is the enemy not only of the United States, but of the modern civilized world. So if you are an enemy of Iran, you must be considered a friend of the Western world, and certainly a friend of the United States. And yet we don't seem to quite understand that. So with the hope that you'll send this documentary over to the White House and the Department of State, let's just run through the lessons we've learned over the past couple of years with regard to Iran. They are, have been, and continue to be the #1 terrorist state in the world. If you're looking for this instability in Lebanon, particularly southern Lebanon and Hezbollah, you can just trace that line right back to Iran. If you're looking for the instability in Israel, Gaza and the West Bank, Hamas, you may look, that dotted line goes right back to Iran. If you're looking for individuals in a country responsible for killing American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan, the line goes back to Iran. it is absolutely amazing to me that after perhaps a well-intentioned, perhaps incorrectly appropriated, but a well-intentioned designation in 97, several administrations ago, of the MEK as a terrorist organization, we take a look at the history as what's transpired, thinking that may have improved diplomatic relations, that it may have opened the door a little bit to reconciliation, to change. What have we seen? So if this effort has led to as the International Atomic Energy recent report concluded, it has showed sanctions have not stopped Iran from maintaining, and I quote, a secret, well-structured nuclear weapons program since before 2004, from establishing, I quote, a hidden weapons program disguised with civil programs. They're closer to nuclear arms capability than they've ever been. They continue to kill and are responsible for the death of American soldiers, continue at the heart of the instability, deaths in the Middle East, and continue to be the #1 terrorist state. And all we've asked this administration to do, and frankly the previous administrations failed to do it as well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The second prism I think that we should and can look at the challenges confronting us is to do with Iraq. Many of you know I was a soldier in a different war at a different place at a different time. There's a wall down here that has 50,000 names, and there's mothers associated with that. There are over 50,000 moms, Gold Star mothers, Gold Star dads. We have at least 4,400 who served their country and have lost their lives in Iraq. We probably have, well, not probably, we have thousands and thousands of more who are coming home with visible and invisible wounds. We probably spent $500 billion to $1 trillion with the hope, with the aspiration, with the goal that once we rid ourselves of Saddam Hussein, the emerging leadership in its own unique way, consistent with their culture, but in its own unique way, embrace the notion of self-government, human rights, tolerance, free speech, all those values associated with the American brand. Think about that sacrifice. And think about the notion that having made that sacrifice of both blood and treasure, we elevate to leadership a group of individuals in the Maliki administration that have turned a deaf ear to the European Union, the European Parliament, hundreds of European legislators who have denied, or rather yet unwilling to accept the adjudication of the European Union and the UK that the MEK is not a terrorist organization, have repeatedly used, and I'm glad my friend Patrick Kennedy brought it up, who continue to use, this is the irony, the tragic irony, continue to use America's, our designation of the MEK as justification for murdering innocent men and women on 2 occasions in 2009 and 11. Fascinating. In the hopes that you're going to send this tape over to the White House and the Department of State, take a look at the letter that the Iraqi government has sent to the European Commission. And in this very letter, at the top of the list, it says, the organization has already been classified by the international community as a terrorist organization. There's only one reason it's there. We helped this government put it there. So to a certain extent, and I'll defer to my distinguished legal colleagues on the dais, seems to me there may be a co-conspiracy here. Unintended perhaps, but the fact of the matter, it does look like we're in collusion. And as long as we continue to designate it as a terrorist organization, they can send these documents around the world justifying, rationalizing, explaining the murder of innocent, unarmed people on 2 occasions in Camp Ashraf. I had occasion to be talking to the UN High Commissioner on Refugees about 2 weeks ago. He expressed grave disappointment and frustration with the Maliki government. But I must tell you, and I'm going to look at this through a third lens, he expressed frustration, perhaps even surprise, with the United States and its failure to act, because the continued designation has frustrated their limited efforts, because they know even if they get access, and so far the Iraqi government has denied them access. We pointed out today, Patrick Kennedy pointed out to you, even today, Martin Kleber was told that you got to move by the Iraqi government, you must move these men and women to another location in Iraq. Beginning to wonder why we are so docile, why we are so submissive, why we are letting this administration, for whom we've sacrificed thousands of lives, and that's far more important than the treasure, but significant treasure, to tell us what to do consistent with our broader moral obligation to support humanitarian human rights and to keep our promise, which we gave individually to every member of Camp Ashraf, when we also guaranteed them protections under the Geneva Convention. That's the other interesting piece of interesting revelation over the past several days. Not only does the Iraqi government say they are going to continue to do and treat them as a terrorist organization, but they said they are not protected by the Geneva Convention.